So good morning, everybody, and big welcome to Tony Burke from BBMM for today's Business Spotlight. Tony, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
Sure, absolutely great. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and not that hard, kind of easy ones. So for our audience here today, can you tell them what do you do and how long have you been doing it?
Well, we started doing what we do back in July 2013, and we had probably about 6 months kind of planning what we wanted to do. So we started thinking about it over the Christmas break in 2012. And what we do now, Tom, believe it or not, is not what we started to think we would do. And that was one of the challenges that we kind of picked up over the line. What we originally wanted to do was to become a web design company. And over the years, we've morphed from a web design company into a digital marketing company. And we like to refer to it now as that we are more of a traditional marketing company in the digital age, because that's very much where we kind of think everything has kind of changed. You know, we've seen lots of changes over the near on 10 years now, specifically pandemic related, of course, which we'll get into in a while.
Yes.
But we've seen a lot of kind of trends come and go. And so the vast majority of what we're doing as well in the digital marketing landscape, it's constantly evolving. You know, tactics that would have worked last year may not work now. You know, so there's no real such thing as rinse and repeat. Unfortunately, we have to keep ourselves kind of trained up and schooled up, and you know, we're probably subscribed now to more newsletters than we ever have been in our history, just to see what's going on globally as well, just to try and keep on top of what the new customer persona is post-pandemic, and all of those kind of good things. So we'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary soon. And
congratulations.
And it's hard to believe, because in some instances, Tom, I look at it and say, wow, that went quick.
Yeah.
But then you sit, you think, you take stock, and you remember, what, you know what, there were a lot of hard times, there were a lot of good times.
So in essence, then you're helping people go from the old-fashioned marketing to show them into the new digital age, and how to maximize to reach their audiences and what strategies they should be using.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what certainly has been trending over the last 2 years is the rush to e-commerce.
Absolutely.
And even those who were traditionally e-commerce before that was about re-evolving what their e-commerce was. You know, it was about kind of, you know, taking the time to figure out what is the customer? Okay. What actually is our ideal customer? How do we?
That's my next question. Who would be? I don't need the name of the company, but who would be your best customer be? Can you give us a description of?
Well, our best customer would be either from a management perspective or from a marketing role perspective. It's those who understand what marketing is. You know, like they have to sit and they have to actually embrace it. It's not really a thing that you can say, oh, look, we need to do more marketing. Because that tends to be a shotgun response to sales are dipping, or lead generation is slipping, or something like that. It's more of an approach to say, look, you know, a proper marketing strategy is good for long-term business. And it's about kind of setting the seeds right. So those who would understand that that's the way that they want to go. And certainly those as well, it's becoming more and more relative as well, Tom, that they have to kind of embrace that there are tools and technology and now part of marketing. Mm-hmm. Whether it's email marketing clients or whether it's CRMs, you know, the list can go on and on, but it's actually embracing them as part of the marketing strategy as well.
Would there be a certain size, Tony, that you'd be recommending that would be your ideal market?
We go more on a person-to-person approach, Tom. We, like, you know, I would find that some of our better contracts on a monthly basis could be like a sole trader.
Okay.
But it's just, it depends on what sector they're in and how they approach the work they do. So as opposed to software as a service, which we do elements of marketing softwares, and we try and make the right recommendation for the right client, Tom, what we would try and do is say, look, if very much when you're looking at the 10 plus, you know, like the Enterprise Ireland kind of client database, they have a whole different set of problems than the 1, 2, 3 kind of staff businesses have. But at the end of the day, it makes no odds to us. It's about, look, what is your best message? How can we attract customers for you? How can we leverage the digital assets that are out there now? How can we embrace omni-channel, for example, if it's important for e-commerce? And for those who are looking at Amazon and eBay as international growth, how do they embrace that? Completely different set of challenges for the sole traders sitting there and saying, look, I just want to fill my calendar for the work that I do. The main question that I would have to potential clients is, are you good at what you do? How good are you? Do you believe in yourself? Are you prepared to put your heart on your sleeve and let the world see you for that? And once they agree to that, Tom, we can formulate a plan. And we can look at their customers, we can look at their databases, and we can say, right, here's where you can get more.
Well, more is good. If you get more of everything, that'd be very good for everybody. So tell me, COVID came along and changed everything. So what are one or two of the actions that you had to take because of the pandemic?
Before the pandemic, we used to offer maybe 12 or 13 different services. And what we were about to launch a new remarketing service. I remember pitching it to a networking group in February, probably when there was, some early news reports and various things, but nobody could have foreseen what happened anyway. What we used to do more so is we used to include in our packages like a little bit of, kind of pre-marketing consultancy and post-marketing consultancy. But when the pandemic came in, and despite what an awful lot of people think, everybody thinks that digital marketing companies made money hand over fist in April and May in 2020. No, they didn't. They were firefighting. Half of their clients' database were closed. There was nothing that they could do. Unless you were selling PCs for home, you weren't really busy. And that's just the God's honest truth. Now, there's an awful lot of evolution that has happened since then, possibly since the summer of 2020, once Microfinance Ireland, Local Enterprise Ireland, local enterprise offices, all these guys started kicking up and running through the gears and really started supporting a lot of businesses. So the one thing that we embraced immediately in that kind of slip of services was just pure consultancy. Pure consultancy and just kind of taking the time to do maybe 2 hour Zooms with businesses, just looking at everything they're doing from the financial side right up to the marketing side.
So you tightened up on the number of strategies and the number of offerings that you had.
Very much so. We tightened it down. we revolve back down to what I like to recommend to clients is to make sure that you have three revenue streams, no matter kind of what you're doing in your business, because if one slows down, you've got two others to retreat into. And it tends to be cyclical like that. So we tighten it right the way down to campaign marketing, and to websites as a service, and then pay-per-click advertising. And those three kind of suited the vast majority of what was out there for that time.
Okay.
So and the consultancy side of it then was, as I was saying there, we used to kind of bundle it as part of a package, but then we took it on as a proper individual one-to-one service. And the excellent part of it, we're able to come to clients and say, look, we can do this every Wednesday from 2 to 4 for the next 16 weeks. And we can see the growth.
Okay.
Part of where we used to distinguish ourselves when it came to consultancy is that we would actually do the work with them on the 2 hour Zoom. So it wasn't just sitting up on a pedestal and saying, look, this is what you should do. It was saying, let's have a look at what's happening and let's do this now.
Okay.
So it was a hybrid version of consultancy. So
you were able to measure it with them, for them, and to show them where the results are coming from, showing the ROS. Okay, ROI, I should say. Absolutely. Fantastic. So Tony, tell me, when you were growing up, is this what you always wanted to do?
No, because when I was growing up, there was no fibre broadband being piped into everybody's houses. And
really, are you that old?
Well, yeah. No, I remember it. I know what generation I'm in. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Okay. What are the biggest issues you've overcome?
Well, relative to when we started the business, I mean, we ultimately figured out very quickly that we just swapped one set of pressures for another set of pressures. And one of the things that we found out quickly as well is that you need to have somebody to talk to. You can't just go alone and start your own enterprise and think everything's going to work. You need to surround yourself with a network of good people, of competent people, of friends, and possibly even some cases frenemies as well, because you need to kind of figure out fairly quickly, what are you going to do when certain circumstances hit you, and the best thing is to surround yourself with people that you can just frankly and openly talk to, and get a little bit of guidance, and be prepared as well, I think, to make mistakes.
Yes,
that's one of the big things, and it carries on. It's easy for us because it carries on into marketing. Kind of part of what we do is to say, look, we're going to try something, it may not work.
Test and measure.
We're going to try it, and we're going to measure it, and we're going to pick it apart, and if it doesn't work, we just won't do it again.
And tell me, that leads me to the next question nicely. Then, who's the best coach you ever had, if any?
That's an interesting one. I do remember many years ago meeting a terrific gentleman as part of the local enterprise office week. The week that they tend to run in May.
Yeah.
And we went down into the offices in Rathnew, and we had a certain kind of sit down with a gentleman. He came down from Dublin, and he was doing workshops for everybody at the course of the day. It was fabulous because he sat with us And we were quite green in the industry at the time. So it was probably like 2014, 2015, Tom.
All
He
right.
sat with us and he just asked us nice and simple questions to get honest answers. And within about 10 minutes, he pointed at me and he said, "You're the issue with the growth of this business." And I'm like, "Oh, really? I'm kind of semi-offended. Am I?" Well, tell me.
I'd say you love that. Yeah.
I loved it. But the
Yeah.
thing was that he was right. That he was right, because with the way, in particular, the way that we approach clients is that we will do bespoke work. We will do potentially a 12-month or an 18-month or a 24-month contract based on ultimately the questions that we would ask the clients about where they want to get to in that time period. And in order to do that, we have to start at the beginning. We have to do an awful lot of research. We have to do competitor analysis. We have to do website analysis, and we have to build that up. Now, that, as you well know, Tom, that takes time.
Yes, indeed.
That takes an awful lot of time. And the gentleman's concern was that I would get too bogged down doing
Bogged down.
much of that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be looking at, if I like you taught me a couple of years ago, make sure I'm looking at my week, make sure I'm segregating out my hours of the day and what's billable and what's not, and make sure at the end of that week that I can come to terms with that and I'm happy with that.
So change is all around us, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny, and change is hard, change is difficult, and as you say, when you're I won't say attacked, when you're challenged like that, like nobody likes that. But anyway, enough about the coaching side. What have you learned most about yourself, Tony, along your journey to date?
I think from both of our perspectives, from myself and Leela's perspective, the big thing that we've learned is to trust our instinct. And sometimes you find that difficult, because when you're out selling and you're out looking for new contracts and you're out looking for new work, the tendency is to take whatever is offered. And one of the things that we've learned is to not take what's offered, is to take what we want to take.
Good.
And it was a very interesting thing to come to it, because we could sit down later on over a nice cold glass of something when it's too warm and we're having a barbecue or something like that, Tom. We could sit and we could discuss several instances over the last 9 or 10 years where we regret engaging with services for a particular client.
Mm-hmm.
And what we certainly learned over the last 2 years is that if our instinct says no, say no.
Interesting. Okay, very good. So tell me, what does the future look like for BBMM, and what do you see as potentially the main challenges you might face?
I think the main challenge is just to get business owners and consumers and everybody back to a level of where they're happy to be back out engaging and back out and spending. Because it is, at the end of the day, it is a circular economy. And for large to medium to small clients, anybody who's out there, they need that working. Everybody needs to be back out and kind of say, look, we have to kind of be pre-warned about what happened in 2008, and as people, just not let that happen again, because the power is in the people to turn around and say, look, we can make sure that this doesn't happen. And to get a lot of kind of contentment back. And for people to say, yes, you know what, our businesses are good. We will survive. We will thrive. Let's start a plan now. Yes,
I love that word, plan. A lot of people leave that bit out.
They do. And it does go back to our strategies and why sometimes it takes me a bit longer than it should to actually work out what a 2-year plan looks like for
and that isn't an easy thing. So what would you say to anybody listening here if they were thinking of going into business? What advice would you give them?
I very much like SWOT analysis. Very, very much like kind of looking at strengths and weaknesses and then opportunities and threats, because I think they are an important part to kind of realize, well, if you're going into business, first question is why are you going into business for yourself? And the second aspect will be to kind of stress test the business in terms of success. What are you going to do if you're too successful? What are you going to do if you're not successful enough? And aim for that happy medium. And then the third element, I would say, look, when it comes to what you think you deserve, you only get that by working hard. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And that's the real thing at the end of it all. Luck just doesn't happen. You don't start a business tomorrow and generate 20 customers. It doesn't work like that.
Put in, you get out. What you put in, you get out. Very good.
Absolutely. And at the beginning stages, it's tough and you're going to be faced with different challenges. Some days you won't want to get up out of bed.
Yeah.
But do get up, face the challenges, get the hardest.
So you mentioned there you're 10 years in business. So congratulations for that. And if you started this business again, what would you do differently?
That's an impossible one to answer because the landscape of what we do has changed so much.
Okay.
For those who are in seeing kind of starting in our industry now, I'm not going to give them the secrets. I'm not going to tell them what this is in this broadcast. I'll keep that to myself because I know the certain challenges that they're going through. But the big aspect of it, I wouldn't change a thing, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, everything that we have done, we have learned from.
Okay.
You know,
so last question. Are there any offers you'd like to include to our listeners here today about approaching you or that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, certainly. Would you know, from anybody who's interested in the Mention Action Coach or anything like that, you know, visit our website bbmm.ie and just go through the contact forms, Mention Action Coach, and we'll give you a free 30-minute assessment on your online business.
Now, there's an offer, guys. So bbmm.ie. Mention the word Action Coach, and Tony will be happy to offer you a free half an hour to discuss your issues. So I'd like to thank Tony Burke today for your time and for investing your time in answering these few questions. It's really strange, I find, when I do all of these, everybody faces the same challenges, no matter what business, product, or service they're trying to sell. So it's really good for all of us within the community to understand that we are all the same. We all kind of face the same challenges. So Tony, thank you so much indeed for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure, Tom. Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure. Cheers.